Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this news bulletin brought to you live from Zainio Studios. I'm Osama Snoussi. We begin this news edition from the G20 summit held in Turkey, in Antalya, Turkey. The US President Barack Obama and other world leaders arrived in Turkey on Sunday for a summit that has taken a new urgency after attacks in Paris pushed the fight against Islamic State militants to the top of the agenda. Obama, who called the attacks an outrageous attempt to terrorize civilians on the eve of his departure, faces the questions of how the West should respond now Islamic State poses a clear threat far beyond its stronghold in Syria and Iraq. Washington already expects France to hit back by taking on a large role in the US-led coalition bombing campaign against Islamic State. The President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, stated from the G20 summit in Antalya, Turkey, that those who organized and perpetrated the attacks in Paris are the very same people who the refugees are fleeing and not the opposite. And so there is no need for an overall review for the European policy on refugees. Let's have a listen to what he said.
I would like to invite those in Europe who are trying to change the migration agenda we have adopted. I would like to invite them to be serious about this and not to give in these basic reactions I don't like.
We need maybe also more, not only more coordination and cooperation, but also more goodwill. And I mean that especially Russian actions on the ground in Syria must be focused more on ISIS, and because in fact we can't accept any actions against the moderate Syrian opposition.
Investigators in France and beyond have begun making arrests as they piece together the identities and backstories of the terrorists who killed more than 120 people in gun and bomb attacks across Paris. The extremist group ISIS has claimed responsibility for Friday night's coordinated series of deadly assaults, the worst violence in France since World War II. Officials are still trying to figure out how assailants were and how they planned and carried out near synchronized massacres at restaurants, bars, and a concert hall in the French capital without being detected by intelligence. In Mali, 60 kilometers west of Bamako, an entire village is emptied from youth due to the absence of any economic activity. Many desperate young people risk their lives taking previous journeys to reach Europe in search of a better life. Karim Fazakri.
At 60 kilometers west of Bamako, the village of Konjan is losing its youth. In search of a better life, young people take major risks off to Europe. After the rainy season, the younger are forced to leave, giving it a shot elsewhere because the hardware is insufficient. Water is no longer distributed properly. This is what drives many young people out of the rural exodus. In each family, at least 3 young people take the path of exile. To finance the trip of his brother, Chayak's parents sold their lone boat in hope their son could join El Dorado on the other side of the Mediterranean. My brother spent 2 exhausting years on the road. Thanks God, he was able to return to Spain. That day at the village, we did not even have enough to eat. He helped us a lot later, whether for food, construction, and even when the father got sick, he assisted us a lot. Without his help, the father would have died. But others have experienced more tragic fates. Geneba alerts in her radio show listeners about the dangers of illegal immigration. An awareness message which often remains vain. Even young people who are here, there are plenty who died on the road. Myself, I have an older brother who died. The boat fell into the water between Morocco and Spain. He lost his life. Despite all this, there are brothers who left after all that. This is the case of Haruna, who recently returned from Libya. In the middle of the field, he entertains the idea of hitting the road once more. Maybe he could be luckier this time.
In our national news and in the health sector, the need to raise awareness within society to prevent diabetes is always highlighted by experts who have warned against the high prevalence of the disease in recent years. More than 4 million Algerians have been diagnosed with this disease, affecting 25% of young people. Karim Fazakri again.
Diabetes is the disease of the century. This illness, which spreads among Algerians as a plague, has affected about 4 million Algerians, 25 of which are young and 10% are children under the age of 10. The most affected age scales are people between the age of 30 and 45 years old. In 2014, around 4 million diabetic cases were recorded in Algeria. The incidence is about 6%, and it changes according to different provinces. If we keep counting like this, by the end of the year 2015, we will reach 6 million diabetics. The disease touches most people at the age of 30 to 40 years old. We are expecting to count 355 million cases of diabetic in the year of 2030, which is practically tomorrow. 14 years isn't that far away. This means 1 out of 10 has diabetes. Diabetes is 2 types and can be caused by a lack of insulin due to the destruction of insulin-producing beta cells in the pancreas. Heredity plays an important part in determining who is likely to develop type 1 diabetes, in addition to physical inactivity and obesity, which are strongly associated with the development of type 2 diabetes.
Essentiellement, il y a 2 أنواع. Le type 1 dit insulinodépendant.
There are essentially 2 types. Type 1 is insulin-dependent and type 2 is non-insulin-dependent. They are different. Type 1, the pancreas produces no insulin. In the case, the patient is hungry and thirsty all the time and wakes up a lot during the night to urinate. Type 2, there is insulin, but the body doesn't know how to use it. Specialists and experts stress the importance of awareness for the prevention of this disease, particularly in schools where a quarter of the students suffer from obesity, a risk factor. Public authorities must strengthen prevention programs alongside medical professionals and associations to ensure earlier treatment.
Internationally and always with health sector, for many years, Karnath Sharma collects unused drugs to redistribute to the poor. In a country where 65% of the population lacks access to basic medicines, despite the universal health care promises from the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who came to power in May 2014.
This is what we call an improvised pharmacy. This man has been collecting unused medicines by Indian homes for so many years. The collected drugs are then distributed to the poor. A man sleeping in the streets, eats and lives there. How can he get drugs? It shocked me. There are some drugs in each house. Each household has medicine, but they all end up in the trash. Universal healthcare was one of the campaign promises of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who came to power in May 2014. Yet, 65% of the population still lack access to basic drugs. In public hospitals and clinics like this, treatment is free, but there are not enough drugs. And due to the large influx of patients, consultations are often botched.
Examination time in government hospital, they say it is 20 seconds. Average time. They go so fast.
India spends only 1% of its GDP on public health, which is less than Sri Lanka or Bangladesh. Households are often forced to pay out of their own pocket. Faced with criticism, the government promises strong action.
The system must make sure that these drugs are available, and they should not say that it is out of stock. So management of the hospital should we fix up the responsibility that such drug is not available, then the action to be taken against the management. That is the only way.
Paradoxally, while the medical system of India is lagging behind, the country is one of the largest exporters of generics in the world, with sales steadily rising.
In other international news, a massive landslide triggered by heavy rains has claimed the lives of at least 16 people and left nearly 24 missing in eastern China. Local officials in Xinjiang province said today that the torrent, mud and rocks had buried nearly 30 homes in the province's Lijiang village on Friday night. Rescue workers were struggling to pull people from the ruins, of the homes and over 300 people were evacuated from the area following the landslide. And we wrap up this news edition with sports news, where the national team of football came back from the Tanzanian capital Dar es Salaam with an important tie against the local national team in the FIFA World Cup 2018 qualifier. The locals took the lead with the 2 goals ahead, but striker Islam Slimani saved the Greens from a humiliating defeat after scoring 2 goals in the 72nd and 75th minutes to ensure a tie. The 2 teams will meet again next Tuesday at Mustafa Chakar Stadium for the second leg. That was it for this news edition. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and goodbye.